Yeah, well, some parts of the country don't have daylight savings.
Like the U.S. Damn, bro, chill.
What?
Just flashing your junk at the camera.
Could you see my dick?
No.
I was like, what? I have shorts on, bro.
Hey, man. You could be.
What's up?
Ladies and gentlemen, prepare for a cinematic odyssey through the 100 greatest films spanning from the roaring 1920s to the cutting-edge masterpieces of 2024. Carefully curated from the lovely people on Letterboxd. Two intrepid souls embark on a journey through a treasure trove of timeless classics and groundbreaking contemporary works, where each frame embodies the enduring magic of the silver screen. Grab your popcorn and join us on this epic expedition through a century of cinematic excellence, where every film promises to enchant, inspire, and leave an indelible mark on the soul. And now, for your listening pleasure, here are the LetterBros.
All right, welcome everybody to the newest episode of LetterBros, where we let a wheel decide our fate and what movie we will watch next based off the top 100 movies on Letterboxd. As always, I am Felix, and I'm joined by Parker. How are we doing today, buddy?
Doing great, Felix. Thanks for getting us together here to talk about another silent movie, the second on our list. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm doing good.
I am too. Honestly, we have been this. So, like you said, this is our second silent film that we've pulled. The first being Sherlock Jr. by Buster Keaton. This one now we have ventured into Charlie Chaplin's filmography with City Lights from 1931, where he wore a lot of hats in this movie. He was director, writer, star, producer, editor, and composer for this movie. This was also his first synchronized sound film. So, like we mentioned in Sherlock Jr., a lot of silent films were performed live in the theater with an orchestra. And that's where Charlie Chaplin kind of rose to prominence in that era. But, with the release of The Jazz Singer and synchronized sound, and that was obviously the first time that sound was put onto screen without the need of a live orchestra, it obviously changed the entire industry. And this was kind of his response to that in a way. The Jazz Singer came out in 1927, and this movie came out in 1931. So there's already been a pretty long history of talkies in the film industry. And this is him kind of not only embracing the technology, but poking fun at it as well. I mean, the movie stars his most popular character, the Tramp. He's been in a couple of other movies like Gold Rush. It's obviously a very prominent character that he portrays and he's most famous for. So to see him in a synchronized sound environment was a first for him. It also almost broke Charlie Chaplin, but we can dive into that a little bit more. But I just want to know, what did you think of this movie?
Yes, I specifically want to talk about not just how it was still a silent film past the start of the talkies, but also the fact that it is very similar to, in a lot of ways, Sherlock Jr., which was Buster Keaton's child in so many different ways. So I'm excited that they're both represented on this list, and I'm excited to see where they land in terms of our scores in comparison to one another. I definitely am. I prefer one over the other, clearly in my mind, but I'll save that for later in the episode. But overall, I thought it was funny. It was, for the most part, vaguely entertaining. In my opinion, it had some slow spells, but I do like that there was some fun poked at the talkie era, so to speak, and that there were so many. Like, they still use sounds in ways that older Chaplin movies didn't. So when in the beginning, they're both kind of talking and it sounds like Charlie Brown's parents.
That's literally the note that I put on there. That's so funny.
It's very funny because in a way, I think that is Charlie Chaplin kind of poking fun at this new age of cinema as he kind of clings on to what it was that he was so well known for. And I think he does it well. We don't see nearly as many stunts in this movie as we see in a lot of other silent films. I feel as though every silent film I've watched, and maybe it's just the selection, have included a lot of funny stunts like we saw in Sherlock Jr. And this was completely devoid of that, which I think was missing. What was it that you had notated about the Charlie Brown parent scene? What was your
Well,
take on
no,
that?
literally,
At first, I was
literally,
very confused by it.
yeah, and I was too, just because I thought this was going to be the entire movie at first, that everybody was just going to be talking like this, and I was like, oh my god, please no. So I had mentioned, pre-recording that I've seen this movie twice now. I watched it yesterday, and shout out to the Criterion channel because they had about 3 different versions of this movie, but I've only watched 2. One was obviously the original, the way that it was intended to be watched, and the other one was with a commentary track recorded by Jeffrey Vance in 2013. And Jeffrey Vance is a very well-known film historian who published books about Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin. So
Hmm.
he knows his stuff. Like, he had interviews like with Charlie Chaplin's son. He knew him personally. He also knew Eleanor Keaton, which is Buster Keaton's wife or widow. So he's pretty like into the world and into the family of silent films. So it was really nice to kind of hear him talk about it after I had already seen the movie and kind of made an opinion about it, to kind of just know a little bit more about what was going on during the filming of this movie and learn a little bit more about Charlie Chaplin. Because I mean,
Hmm.
my knowledge of him is just he's dude with the bowler cap. He's got a little questionable mustache.
not
And
not for his time. It wasn't. It
no,
wasn't
not
yet
for his
made
time.
questionable.
This is way before. So
But that sounds super cool. It sounds like you're getting so much use out of the Criterion collection. I watched it on Max, but I'm sure that it helped to give a little bit of context and a little bit of perspective. So that can always help after watching a movie for the first time.
absolutely. And it gave me,
Um,
and like, I didn't really know about him really poking fun at talkies, because again, like the whole, like the mayor and all of them talking at the beginning, I thought it was just like it was a gag, but it
mhm.
kind of just goes a little more deeper than that. That's like you said, him poking fun at this new technology, and that he's kind of rebelling against it. He even says that dialogue gets in the way of the magic of filmmaking, whereas he's very into pantomime. Like, he's more wanting to convey the story and conversations through pantomime and through movement and through gags versus just dialogue, which I kind of agree with. This, like Sherlock Jr., this felt like watching like a real life cartoon, so it was very enjoyable.
And I do want to say, Felix, I just realized that we have not gone over just a brief synopsis of the movie or anything along those lines.
Oh, well, then
Um,
dive right in.
So yeah, I'll bring us into that. But if you have not yet seen City Lights, it is a romantic comedy drama that follows the misadventures of, as you said, Charlie Chaplin's famous and lovable tramp. He falls in love with a blind flower girl and is looking to find ways to raise money to help her out with rent and with her eyesight. And meanwhile, he prevents, it's credited as an eccentric millionaire, prevents him from committing suicide, and the millionaire will only remember Charlie Chaplin for some reason, the tramp, when he's drunk. So we follow the tramp's endeavors being invited back into the millionaire's house and then subsequently kicked out when the millionaire comes to and has no idea who Charlie Chaplin or the tramp is. So it's a very, very cut and dry plot, in my opinion, which
Mhm.
is neither a good nor a bad thing because it does allow for some different gags to happen throughout the film. I personally thought that it got to be a bit redundant, but the budget for the film was 1.5 million. It did pull in an estimated 4 million worldwide at the box office. It has a much longer runtime than Sherlock Jr. too, I may add, almost double Sherlock Jr.'s length.
Anything's going to be longer than Sherlock Jr. at this
That
point,
is
dude.
true. Lower than 44 minutes and you're a TV episode. Even
I mean,
44
they
minutes.
pretty
kind of
much a
feels cool.
TV episode at 45 minutes.
Exactly.
That's an SVU episode right there. But going back to your point about the stunts, I feel like that was something that Buster Keaton was mainly known for, besides
That
just
is
like
true. Yeah.
his dry delivery and his dry, just kind of like facial expressions. he was known for going above and beyond when it came to stunt performance in film. Charlie, I feel, is a lot more story driven and wanting to, pull off more gags or what he called bits of business. And that's kind of like the background he came from. He was actually born in London to a family of artists. His dad worked in the theater in London where he predominantly played like a drunken character, which was kind of easy to do when he was an alcoholic anyway. And we actually see a lot of that inspire the eccentric millionaire character. So that Harry Myers even got like his deadpan stare. So like when they're at like the first party scene where, he's eating like the spaghetti and all of that.
Yeah,
When
that's the
the
closest thing, by the way, that we really got to a stunt, right?
Yeah, like when they're choke dancing people and like
Yeah. Yeah.
like that was I or actually no, the boxing scene.
Yeah, I suppose. The boxing scene actually was probably my favorite part of the movie, and not to
Oh,
interrupt what you were saying, but
no, it's fine. No, that even saying the like the vacant stare that he was giving was almost like mimicking exactly what his dad would do in his, fits of drunken pleasure. Charlie Chaplin spent about 2 years making this movie, and there was a lot of numbers being thrown during the commentary track that I don't remember all of them, but I do remember one because Charlie Chaplin was known to be a very strict perfectionist, like a lot of artistic geniuses are.
mhm.
So much that the first scene where the tramp and the blind woman meet, when like he's selling the flower or she's selling the flowers to him, and the guy's gonna get in the car, like kind of like that first meet and greet,
Mhm.
took 342 takes to finally cut into the
Oh my
movie.
gosh, no wonder he wanted to do a silent film, dude. Can you imagine if
So,
they were
and this
actually
was
talking?
oh my god, no,
That's
that would have been
crazy.
awful. But I feel like they're pantomiming, but I feel like they had to have said something, even though like they clearly said like there wasn't really a script. It was
Yeah, and
just
I'm sure that many takes had probably 10 to 15% of them had to do with acting, if I had to guess. Because I'm sure that he
yes.
was also, as a director, he's probably also very, very finicky about how it looks.
And this
Um,
was like total over like he would try to shoot that scene over like 2 months of the year. So like he would take 2 months to try and shoot it, take a break, spend another 2 months trying to shoot it again, especially because Virginia Cheryl was not an experienced actor when she took on this role. She had not really any film credits before she got this. He literally casted her because kind of sounds stupid, but the way that she looks, and when I say that, I mean literally the way that she like looks at something because she was nearsighted but didn't want to
mhm.
wear glasses. So the way and we see it throughout the film, he said that she could portray a blind person without seeming offensive.
Yeah,
And we
she did a
see
really
that
good job of looking blind, I
and
have to
I
say.
wouldn't have known that, but it's just really crazy that like that's just what she does naturally, and that's something that is a big obviously a big part of the movie, but that she's really good at. I mean, that could also go into why it took 342 takes to make. They also fucking hated each other as
The 2
well.
actors. And
Yes,
we should credit her, by the way. The actress that plays the blind flower girl, her
yes,
name is
Virginia
Virginia
Cheryl.
Cheryl. Yeah. Sorry, did you already say that?
I did.
Okay.
So
But
he
yeah, I
she
did see that they hated each other. So get into why. What happened specifically on set? Did you find
it
anything
was
out?
just mainly like just butting heads and different personalities. Like there was a like Charlie Chaplin, for as how funny he was on screen and how like he portrays this kind of bubbly character, was
Hmm.
not like a totalitarian on set, but like obviously with like a perfectionist mindset. Like he needed everything to be on time and perfect, and she would always run late to set.
Mm.
She had asked to go home early one day because she had a hair appointment, and he pretty much shut down the whole studio and fired her on the spot at
Obviously
that
not for
point.
long.
No, and then when he was like, "You know what? I get it. You need to go and do your hair. All right, we'll bring you back." Virginia goes, "That's fine, but you're doubling my pay now."
Ha!
which then also adds more time to have to film and more
Yeah.
time to budget the film. It's just this set sounded crazy. And there was a dude who filmed on another like a little 16 millimeter camera of Chaplin filming that scene as well. And you can kind of see like it's very interesting to see like how he works, because if you don't think about it, you're just seeing Charlie Chaplin on screen as the tramp. So to see him
Yeah.
like sitting in the director's chair and kind of like doing his thing, it's crazy to watch, even though there's no sound.
I'm trying to see if he's done any interviews where you can
He
hear him speak
has,
a
but
little
it's
bit.
when he's a lot older.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't really surprise me if I'm being honest that he was like that on set. And honestly, they both sound like they had their flaws. So it sounds like an absolute nightmare. Interesting.
Hmm.
I don't think that on the whole, I'm just really a huge fan of Charlie Chaplin, which may sound blasphemous, but
Hmm.
the way that he portrays this character, which I think this is the second movie I've seen with the tramp as the protagonist, and neither time it's really just appealed to me. But yeah, their relationship on set sounds and reminds me of Shelley Duvall on the set of The Shining, and the staircase scene that
Oh,
they had to shoot, 200 however many times.
yeah.
So
Stanley
that's kind of what I was
Kubrick
reminded of.
destroyed that woman.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Do you know if she was in anything after this?
She did have So this was her first like feature as like a character in a movie. Before that,
Mhm.
she was an extra, obviously uncredited, but she does have a couple more films on her dossier. Two of them are lost films, unfortunately, but
Wow.
she obviously doesn't have like an extensive list, but she did go on to have somewhat of a career afterwards. She ended up marrying like some Duke of New Jersey at some point and was very heavily involved in like the Red Cross relief during World War II. Like didn't feel like I was going to learn this much today.
Yeah.
So shout out to Jeffrey Vance, who is just a wealth of knowledge that obviously kind of skewed me towards a little bit more of my score, but I'm going to try and keep the score to be more of reflective of my first watch through of it, because while I love American history, I love film history, and there were things in this film that I thought were, like, to your point, kind of repetitive. Mainly the like when we first meet the eccentric billionaire and when they keep falling in the water, I'm just like, okay, we get it. Like,
Yeah.
please stop. But again, that builds up the next kind of punchline to where now, after you've already seen them fall twice, and now the millionaire is kind of inching towards the water, you're just sitting there like, "Oh, God, please not again." Like I
Mhm.
guess it kind of builds that tension and that suspense. So,
Yes, and I think I had less of an issue with the repetition of the gags themselves, which is something that I did have an issue with in Sherlock Junior. For example, remember the cinema scene where he's walking in to the movie and it just spent however long it did rotating through him going through different movies. That I found to be annoying. In the case of City Lights, I found it to be a bit annoying that the plot itself kept repeating. He kept going to the eccentric millionaire's house and then him waking up not realizing who he is, getting kicked out, going to the flower girl. Like, it was very much like this happens, then this happens, repeat, and then
mhm.
different things will happen in between, but on the whole the objectives are still the same for all of the characters throughout the duration of the film. So that I found to be a little bit irritating, I guess, or just not entertaining.
And
um
that could be seen as like, because he's kind of fighting at like the duality of like the poor class and the rich class. And he's kind
uh-huh.
of just not necessarily sitting there in the middle, because he leans more towards like the poor class. Like you even see at
Yeah,
the
he's
end
a
after he
tramp.
went to
Yeah.
jail, he's tattered and you got kids picking on him all the time, but he's fitting into the lifestyle of the elites when he's at these parties. Well, somewhat. One gag that I'll point out that's really funny to me is when he's at like the second party. This one's at the millionaire's house, and he tries to like scoop up some dip, but it's just this guy's bald head
Yeah.
that just looks like the dip. And when they go to offer him the dip again, he's just like kind of pushing it off. Like that one genuinely like made me laugh. there was also like other things that like it made me chuckle. Like this, that's the thing. Like I was thoroughly entertained when the gags were on screen. I just couldn't continue on with the story because it did get a little bit repetitive. But I will say, once the boxing match starts, that's when I started getting heavily invested in this movie
Hmm.
because that's when he gets arrested by the police. That's when he finds out. No, this is after he finds out about the rent money, but he becomes so determined on trying to get the blind lady
Uh-huh.
not only the money for her surgery, but for the money to just like pay her rent that you get so emotionally attached. Like you want the tramp to win. I didn't think I was going to be this compelled watching a silent film, but I think that's the magic of Charlie Chaplin, that he's able to convey all of these emotions just through pantomime in
Hmm.
such a picture perfect way that while you're just looking at the gags and everything, you didn't think you were going to get hooked.
Yeah, I was not hooked.
Oh,
So
well.
I'm glad because, dude, we've had so many episodes where you and I kind of walk step for step in terms of our thoughts for a film. And I didn't, by no means did I hate this movie or even really like dislike it. It just
Yeah.
didn't do anything for me. I will say the last 20 minutes, like from the boxing match on, is what I enjoyed the most. Specifically, the boxing match. I thought that whole, this guy beat this guy who then just knocked the fuck out of this guy. And now he's going. I thought that was very well done and very funny. But yeah, I just never feel that connected to Chaplin's character. I never, really found myself rooting for him. I wasn't rooting against him, but as you said, I was never really that invested.
And I really wasn't either up until those last like 15, 20 minutes because
Mhm.
that up until that point, the tramp is just kind of just lollygagging through the movie, which is
Right.
fine. Like that's kind of what I expected a Charlie Chaplin film to be. Like, we get the party scene and we get like the gag of him like continuously eating the spaghetti that ends up just being a silly string connected. Like that's funny. And that's what I'm expecting out of it. And I was thinking that was going to be the whole hour and a half of just straight laughs, but he is able to bring in a little bit more realism and bring just a little bit more and kind of insert that like I didn't even think that this was kind of classified as a romantic comedy until those last 15 to 20 minutes where we
Mhm.
get that story arc of he's now helped her to pay off the rent, and we see that he has to go away for a little while and she's asking like how long, and he says but I'll be back. Like it's just that part sunk with me a lot, and then to see them at the end finally see each other again, big props to Charlie Chaplin and Virginia Cheryl for portraying that on screen and making it feel so genuine. To when I heard the commentary tracks about them hating each other, it was very shocking because they had such good chemistry on screen.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I wouldn't say they didn't have good chemistry, but I didn't see sparks flying off the screen. And granted, it was black and white. I thought that the very end where she touches him and realizes that it's him through feeling his hands, I thought that
Mhm.
that was very well done, and that landed for me. But I don't
That was
know.
kind
Yeah,
of like the
her
cherry
flower
on top
shop's
for
like on that
me.
exact corner, and the ending seemed almost a little bit rushed for how much we had just suddenly like dived into a story, and then it feels like it just kind of wraps up so quickly where he just
Yeah.
stumbles upon her flower shop, which I get it worked, but we had spent 65 minutes, or I had spent 65 minutes waiting to get a little bit more substance. And then by the time it comes, I'm like, okay, I enjoyed what I got before this, but to get the essence of the movie, I probably could have skipped ahead a little bit.
Or just like stayed with the gags. Like
Yeah,
we thought that
right.
that was going to be the whole movie, but there's this other storyline kind of introduced and kind of hinted at throughout, but
Hmm.
it's hidden behind these gags and all of this kind of repetitive storytelling with the millionaire going back to the blind lady's house and get like kind of going back and forth. And I can agree with you on that. It does get repetitive, but I will stand on my hill and say that that last 20 minutes was probably the most emotional that I've seen in a silent film. I would say like it was very compelling towards the end, and I really wasn't expecting that. So
Hmm.
I liked it. I didn't love it, but I could say that there was a lot more things that I liked than I disliked.
Yeah, I would say that there's probably about equal for me. And, just to be completely honest with the people listening and with myself and with you, just silent films aren't necessarily my thing. Like, I would never really run towards a silent film just for the sake of watching it and enjoying it. So that, I
Yeah.
mean, that definitely bleeds into how I feel about the movie. I'm not going to sit here and sing praises for it, which you can do. Like, there's much to love about this film and to, I think, appreciate about this film. But when it comes down to my personal preference, it's really didn't have much of a chance of landing in the first place. So I feel it's important that I do address, just my innate preference.
Yeah, I mean, we all heard your reaction when we pulled City Lights in the last episode. So,
Hey now,
hey
do we
man.
have any more silent films on this list? I'm curious. I'm not sure.
Yes, I think Joan of Arc is a silent film.
Okay.
So we got some, but hopefully that can be a little later.
Yeah.
But
But
before we even start talking about our
mhm.
next films, you want to dive into our rankings?
Yeah, let's do it. And we'll
All
talk a
right,
little
cool.
bit more about the movie in there. But
Exactly. So we'll go ahead and pull it up. And as always, we start with enjoyability and rewatchability. For this, I gave it a 10 just because kind of goes without saying. I've saw the movie twice, but part of me wanted to hear the commentary track just to get a little bit more background into like what the movie was. Because at first, I wouldn't say I really liked this movie at all
mhm.
upon first watch. Like I could probably agree with you there that silent films aren't really my thing, but I feel that learning a lot more about it helped me like this movie a little bit more just to know a little bit of the history. And again, I love history. I love learning about things going behind the scenes, and getting a little glimpse of that did up my score for watching the movie. And obviously the last 15-20 minutes are one of the best things I've seen. It was very emotional, it was very attached, it was very endearing, made me feel cozy at the end. And I didn't think a silent movie would do that, but that's the magic of Charlie Chaplin. But I feel comfortable leaving it at a 10 because there's other movies I'd rather enjoy and rewatch.
Yeah, I've got to say, Charlie Chaplin is he's very well known and loved for a reason, but he's not my guy. I'll just come out and say it now. I much preferred Buster Keaton's Sherlock Jr. I was more drawn to the performance, to the character. I give this a 6 in terms of enjoyability and rewatchability. Frankly, not something I'm probably going to revisit. But
Dang.
there were definitely scenes that I thought were fun, which is why it still gets 6. It's not at 0, but yeah, nothing super special in my mind.
The lost generation is gonna come for you, bro.
We'll see. I mean, they're lost for a reason. For the
Right.
story, there wasn't really much of one until the end, and even then, I thought that the story was pretty flat for the most part. Not a whole bunch of layers going on here. It is a silent film. We didn't see it with Sherlock Jr. either. They're made for a different reason, it kind of seems. I give this a 7, a little less than half, because it still did have a defined narrative that I think that we followed and some interesting things going for it. But yeah, nothing really multidimensional in my mind. More so just a plot that served the purpose of the gags.
Yeah, I feel comfortable with that. I gave this one a 9 out of 15, mainly because, and I had to look back at my Sherlock Jr. score because I gave that one a 7 out of 10
Mm-hmm.
initially. But I felt that there was more of a concrete story here, and it was a little bit more compelling than Sherlock Jr. Again, Sherlock Jr. felt like a cartoon made with live action people in it. Whereas this, it still had those elements and it was a little bit more goofy. There were still some elements in there that made you feel something else other than laughter. I mean, I feel comfortable giving it a 9. It's not the most compelling story I've ever seen, but I was very surprised at how I felt while watching this movie. With lasting impression, I gave it an 11. This isn't a movie that is going to stick with me and stick up there with like the 15s and 13s of my life, but I still was very happy with this being my introduction into Charlie Chaplin, with this, obviously being his favorite film that he's went on saying, like, Gold Rush was a movie that he wanted to be known for. This one was his personal favorite, and you could see why. He put a lot of man hours into this movie, and it shows on there, and it has obviously left a lasting impression just in Hollywood, in filmmaking. It's, we're still talking about it to this day, and it's something that has left a bigger impression on me than Sherlock Jr.
Yeah, this definitely won't stick with me as much because it doesn't have those out of this world practical stunts like we saw in Sherlock Jr. I mean, there were certainly no one was jumping through other people in this movie, so automatic cool point deduction. It is obviously Charlie Chaplin himself has made such an impact on the film industry, and he's, a legend in his own right, and for good reason. So anything that he's tied to, is going to have some form of lasting impression on the general population, but not specifically in my brain. So I give it a 7 because it is going to hold strong, as always, as City Lights. It's known for what it's known for, and people love it for that. But for me, that's where it stops. It's not going to be something that's really on my mind in the future. And I'll probably forget a majority of what was inside of this film, in a month or two. And that could either be a testament to my bad memory or just the fact that it didn't really land there in my brain folds. For visual and auditory appeal, I thought that the film did look good. I mean, my cat really liked the way that this movie looked. And I'll send you some
Marty.
videos, I couldn't get him off the screen. He was blocking probably like 30% of my television for like 40 minutes out of this movie, almost half of it. I mean,
please tell me you have video of that.
Oh, I do, and you can put it in here. But he could not get enough of City Lights. Definite Marty points. I thought it looked good. I give it a 7 out of 10. It is in black and white, which there's no point deduction there, but it naturally limits. Like if Lawrence of Arabia were in black and white, like it would still look really, really good, but you wouldn't have the pop of those colors. No. So yeah, for what it was, I thought it looked fine.
I gave
the sound. I don't know how I got through that without mentioning the sound. Sorry, but
oh my god, you're right.
It being a synchronized sound film, I thought that it allowed it to do some more fun things that I think worked well on an auditory level.
I gave it an 8. One big reasoning for this score is the set design. I thought that the mansions and all the set pieces looked really good, and how they were able to kind of reuse certain sets just for different parts of the mansion, but also reuse like the opening scene set, like with the statues, and put it back to kind of have it be a little bit different when he's like, essentially being a pooper scooper on the street. Also found out that a lot of the set design was done by a guy named Danny Hall, who he did sets for a lot of Chaplin's films, but more notably, he also built the sets for Dracula, Frankenstein, and Bride of Frankenstein.
Oh, wow.
So big points for that. I'm like, this movie's connected to horror now. It's fine. Let's give it an extra point. Yes.
Speaking of sets for Frankenstein, have you seen the first photo of Guillermo? Wow, that was embarrassing. Huh? Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. Have you seen the first photo from that set?
Yeah, the one with Oscar Isaac.
I couldn't tell who it was.
Or I don't know. I know Oscar Isaac is like in it, I think, but I haven't seen the set.
Yeah, that movie. But there's a photo of Frankenstein's lab.
Oh no, I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Anyway, what'd you think about the pacing of this? Sorry.
Well, I haven't even talked about the auditory appeal either.
True.
I thought for this being like, I was very surprised to hear that Chaplin also composed the score, but this was also his first, like the first time that he has his music recorded onto screen. And I thought it was really good. I mean, it obviously helped build the pace of the movie. It helped build the overall theming of the movie. It worked very well in certain scenes. So it was very well done, and especially towards the end, the music got very emotional and helped capture what these characters were feeling, and I thought it was nice. It wasn't the most memorable piece, like I couldn't tell you a lick from it, but while watching it, it made the experience a lot more interactive and a lot more engaging. For pacing, I gave pacing a 7 because again, there were a lot of times where things were repeating and it was kind of the same thing over and over again. Like even like specifically the gag where the two boxers knock each other out. The referee is counting one off and they get up. He turns the other one falls down, and it's just this back and forth of like, okay, I get it, dude. Like, let's keep the ball rolling. Like, let's keep the story moving. But I mean, that's what you're here for, is the gags. So that wasn't what I was necessarily looking for in terms of pacing, but I feel comfortable giving it a 7 because the rest of the movie I feel picked up pretty well, but there was a lot more dragging scenes.
Yeah, I originally had it at a 7, but I'm gonna give it a 6 for the pacing because it wasn't a very long runtime, but I kind of felt the runtime a little bit. It wasn't really what I wanted to be doing while I was watching it. I wasn't really nestled in at any point during this movie, and I think it's because it was kind of repetitive, and I didn't really feel like we were getting anywhere. So it gave me, frankly, very little to invest myself in. Above average, I guess, not really average, but above half. But yeah, just not super solid for me in my eyes.
What do you think of
For the
acting?
acting, let me see. All right, for the acting, yeah, I was also originally going to give this a 7, but I'm tempted to bump it up because of what you kind of told me about, what was her name? Virginia Cheryl.
Virginia Cheryl, yeah.
Having that ability and Chaplin casting her specifically for that, which is brilliant on his end because, I mean, she really pulls it off in a convincing way. I'm still going to give it a 7. Yeah, I don't think that I don't feel a lot of empathy for Charlie Chaplin's character at any point, and I think it's kind of the way that he does portray it. He always just seems like so above it. Maybe it is Chaplin's, I hesitate to say narcissism, but perfectionism kind of coming out and portraying itself on screen a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he didn't really land for me emotionally. What did you think of the acting? It's obviously iconic, but
yeah, and that's where I'll give it its props at an 8. It's Charlie Chaplin is very good at what he is trying to do, and obviously he has made a killing off of it playing this character, and I feel that this is kind of like his masterpiece in terms of the portrayal of the tramp. I mean, he even goes on to say that in this movie he really wanted the tramp to have a very believable relationship with his love interest in this movie. Like you could see a future in the tramp and the not so blind lady anymore, but that you could believe that. And it came out of a performance from somebody who he found, quote, the least attractive person he's ever met.
he said that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So and that could just
He seemed
be
like a great guy.
He sure did. He seems like a nice fellow. It's funny, I just pulled up a picture of him at the premiere of City Lights with Albert freaking Einstein.
Yeah, I actually had that as a note, and I didn't get to squeeze it in before we moved on to it, and I didn't,
Well, squeeze it, brother.
But yeah, he did. Albert Einstein did attend the premiere and allegedly really enjoyed it.
That's still crazy. These people are old as shit, dude.
Well, now they're dead.
They sure are.
Yep.
But
real quick before we move into suspension of disbelief, I just have to disagree with you because I'm loving the fact that we're not seeing eye to eye on this film. In no way did I see a future between the tramp and the blind woman. In no way.
Dude, I could.
The way that I see, the future of this movie past what we get to see on screen is her saying, "Thank you so much. Like, you are so, generous and kind and great," and then placing him firmly in the friend zone. That is how I saw it.
God, do you think he's gonna get friend zoned?
Yeah.
Was that even a thing in the 1930s?
I think this may have created the friend zone.
Charlie Chaplin is the ultimate friend zone. And you know what? You know what's really funny to kind of see like there's so much inspiration that comes out of this performance. So like even like the smiles that Chaplin has at most, I saw Art the Clown in like 4 different scenes of this movie.
Yeah.
Just based off of like
great.
No, I mean like just like in the mannerisms, like the way that David Howard Thornton like plays, he's very good at pantomiming, like portraying his thoughts and his dialogue just through movement. And there was a lot of times where Chaplin was smiling and I literally just like it looked like Art the Clown.
Yeah, dude, Chaplin's so creepy in this movie.
He really is. Even like in that final scene where he's like kind of covering his mouth, like it kind of looked. And even when he's in the window, when she's like looking at him, he looks like a fucking creep.
He's just throwing the riz.
No, dude, it's like he's got that like dirty teeth.
Yeah.
That was nasty.
Yeah. Yep.
All props to Charlie Chaplin, a legend of his craft in pantomime and silent films and just filmmaking in general. In this performance, like he really gave it his all. The Eccentric Millionaire was really fun to watch too. And obviously, like with the inexperience of Virginia Cheryl, like that, props to her. But it's no Scenes from a Marriage. It's no A Separation. It's not
Fucking not
any
even close.
mind-blowing performances, obviously.
Yeah, you know what? I'm now I want to bump it down to a fucking 6.
Do you really?
I'm not going to, but
do it, bro.
Temptation is there. We'll
Do
see
it.
how I feel about my final score, and if I'm gonna deduct a point, it'll be from acting.
Well, for suspension of disbelief, I gave it a 7. That's what I feel comfortable with. I was well engrossed in what I was watching. I knew that I was going to be watching a Charlie Chaplin film with gags galore and all of that. And obviously, there was not a lot of things to kind of hook me in and make me believe that, like, this is not real, but that it's kind of following its own rules. Like, there are no rules. Like, he's kind of just like the rules are on the film set, but it's not necessarily in the film. I'll leave it at that. I knew what I was getting into and I was hooked onto it for what it is, but it's not anything that I'm like fully engrossed into, if that makes any sort of sense.
Yeah, no, I agree with you
And so far we have a 20-point difference in our score.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've added a score for suspension. And
True that.
I give it a 7, so a 13-point difference. But yeah, I mean, there was nothing that like outright pissed me off, kind of like there was in High and Low a little bit. But
oh yeah,
it's still, I mean, yeah, the plot here was so simple that of course it's going to use conveniences everywhere that it can to kind of portray what little story it has, in my opinion. So yeah, a 7 is there because it is what it is, and I have nothing more to say in this category.
He's so mad.
I'm not mad.
He's so Parker is just ready to spin the wheel.
I'm ready.
Bro.
Is it that obvious?
And pull our second silent film.
I always love spinning the wheel, though, even if I loved the movie that we watched. There's no feeling quite like spinning the wheel. Anyway,
No,
originality. I guess I'll give it an 8 here because it had the goal, and Chaplin had the goal to deny the massive wave of talkies that was kind of overtaking the industry, and he wanted to make what ended up being his personal favorite film. And I think that shows through because it did seem like it's his little towards the end of the career passion project that he's going for here. So I think that it gave it its own kind of unique atmosphere and feel. But yeah, nothing groundbreaking. I could probably give it a 7. But for that era, I think it was probably, you know what? I could go the complete opposite direction, though, and say that what would have been way more original is Chaplin trying to break into the talkie scene and show that no matter what form of picture it is, that he was going to be, a creative mastermind. And he didn't do that. So I'm going to give it a 7 just because I had a little hint of opposite perspective there. So what are you giving it for originality?
I had it originally at a 10.
What?
I bumped it down. I bumped it down to a 9. Only because, like,
why for both?
What do you mean why for both?
Like, why did you originally have it at a 10, and then why did you bump it down to?
So
a 9?
I originally had it at a 10 because of all the commentary surrounding it, and again, it's me trying to focus myself into my first time viewing. Like, this was Charlie Chaplin's favorite film that he's ever made. This was his first synchronized sound film that, he made in retaliation of talkies. This was his most groundbreaking work in terms of his character of the tramp, that like he really wanted to just like give it his all and show that the tramp is not going to be someone who succumbs to dialogue because he's a universal character. And if you give him a language and you give him an accent, he instantly kind of cuts off a certain demographic. And one, that doesn't make for good pictures because it won't do well internationally. But two, it just goes to show like the character and how much he loves playing and creating for this character. And that's why I had originally gave it a 10, but I dropped it to a 9 because we have other films of this genre and other films with the Tramp, like Gold Rush. And we have other Chaplin movies like The Great Dictator that he does talk to where it kind of undermines the whole point of the movie in a sense, to where he's like giving a big middle finger to talkies only to then go and make a talkie later down the line. And whereas this character is not wholly it's original because he made it, there's other pieces of media that include the Tramp that he's become like a recurring character. So, but I still want to give this movie its props. Obviously, it's on this list for a reason. Obviously, there's an interview on, I think it's on Criterion, where like Brad Bird is talking about how much he loves this movie. So it's obviously influenced like generations of filmmakers and actors. Like I could think back on the Charlie Chaplin biopic with RDJ. He has had such a huge influence, and I think this movie is a big part of it. But I don't want to give it a 10 because it's not a Love Exposure or a Spirited Away. That's where I will get off my high horse. For attachment, I gave it a 2.
What? After all the That's
I'm
so
just
shocking.
kidding. It's fine. I gave it a 3 actually. No,
That's still
I
surprising. I was expecting a 4 out of you. I
no,
did
not
give it a
for
2. I did give it a 2.
not for this. Like it's again, this isn't something that like it was fun to watch, and it was so much fun to learn about Charlie Chaplin and get introduced to him through his favorite piece of work, and it was great to watch. It's not something I'm going to be returning to in the future, but I enjoyed that. So that's where I'll leave it at attachment. Parker
What?
with a 56.
Hey man, still 3 stars. It's on the low end of 3 stars, but it's still a
It
3-star
is.
movie according to my Letterboxd.
Is 72 3.5? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that puts the average score at a 64,
I think
which puts it just below Sherlock Jr.
all right. Wow,
with a
and by a
score
wide
of.
margin too. We had Sherlock Jr. at a 71. So that's
This is our second movie in the 60s because we had Woman in the Dunes at what? Oh, 53. Yeah. Not great. We're almost at 15 movies.
all right.
We're
Yeah,
almost
and I
at
will say
20
that
movies.
the movie we have right below City Lights, Human Condition 1. I did enjoy City Lights quite a bit more than
And
Human
that's
Condition.
the thing. Like I've always feel so bad for Sherlock Jr. and now City Lights is kind of in there where like
Yeah, but you have me to blame for that. So you had
yeah,
it above our average score for Sherlock Jr. as well. So
Parker's a little Debbie Downer.
sorry about it.
He wants
I'm
people
excited
to
though.
talk in
I
his
am one
movies.
excited Debbie Downer because you know what it's about time to do.
It's not about time, bro.
Oh,
It is time. It's time to give that wheel a big old spin, baby.
I am so excited.
Me too, dude. But as always, we're leaving City Lights in the lights of the city. Not far, not super far away, but like far enough to be like, maybe I'll catch you when like I'm deaf and like I have no other choice than to watch a silent movie. But
Wow.
yeah, that's where I'll leave it at. But Parker, are you ready for this next movie?
Yes, I'm so
I
ready.
just saw Barry Lyndon, saw Goodfellas again. Maybe you think I should wait like 2 more seconds? You think that'll make a difference?
Let's count down from 3,
Okay,
2, 1.
1.
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Oh my god.
I still can't see what the titles are.
Oh my god.
Oh, we've got Star Wars. We've got, at the time of the creation of this
We
list,
got it, baby.
number 51, The Empire Strikes Back. What a switch up. I'm
Absolutely
pretty
amazing.
excited. I'm pretty excited. I'm not nowhere near as big a Star Wars guy as you are, but It's been so long since I've seen all but the first one with Darth Maul, um,
Oh,
Phantom
Phantom
Menace.
Menace. Oh
And I
my
I did
god,
love
here we
that upon my
go.
rewatch, but oh, you already have it rated 5 stars.
Oh, dude, of course.
All right, so this is all yours, Felix. Take it away. What do
So
we have coming up?
what I will say is that we can celebrate because this is finally a movie that we have both watched.
That is true. Though
So
I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen this movie.
yeah, but you've seen it, which is
Yeah.
good. So, well, I'll actually save this until after I read this. But we have pulled Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, released in 1980, directed by Irvin Kershner. The Star Wars saga continues. The epic saga continues as Luke Skywalker, in hopes of defeating the evil Galactic Empire, learns the ways of the Jedi from aging Master Yoda. But Darth Vader is more determined than ever to capture Luke. Meanwhile, Rebel leader Princess Leia, cocky Han Solo, Chewbacca, and droid C-3PO and R2-D2 are thrown into various stages of capture, betrayal, and despair. So this rating, while I'll also say it's sitting at a 4.4 average rating on Letterboxd with 578,000 five-star reviews.
And it's currently number 53 on the list, so it has gone down 2 spots.
Yes, so we were sitting at 51. And so this rating came out of, I actually sat through and I'll get out of here. I sat through a 9-film movie marathon earlier this year in May, where we watched each one, episode 1, 2, 3, 4, like all the way back to back to back to back to back to back to back.
You're wild
And
for that.
it's wild. And I do actually have, hang on. So what I have here is a Laserdisc copy of The Empire Strikes Back
That's
from
amazing.
my dad's personal collection. We'll kind of go into it a little bit more, but like, look at this shit, dude.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Because we didn't have a DVD player. We had a Laserdisc player when I was growing up. For some reason, even though it was already an outdated piece of media. Parker knows. I'm sure everybody here knows. I am so excited. I love the Star Wars franchise. I have a whole YouTube channel dedicated to it. So to be able to kind of dive deep into it on this podcast, it's gonna be fun. I'll probably just make it a whole trilogy thing now, but we'll mainly talk about Empire Strikes Back. For this show's sake, I know we'll both just watch Empire Strikes Back just for this. Me personally, if I'm watching Empire, I have to watch the OG trilogy, so that's what I'll do. But until then,
Yeah, see,
what's that?
well, real quick, see, I don't even know where this lands in the order of the films.
There is I mean, in terms of like the original release, this is the second film that came out. So
Okay.
Star Wars had come out and it was just Star Wars. It was literally like there wasn't any sort of numbers or anything. It's just Star Wars. And then it did so well. They obviously came out with a sequel. They didn't want to call it Star Wars 2. They called it Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back.
Okay. So
It's
this
not
is number
until
2 in the original trilogy, right?
correct.
And then you have the prequels that came out later.
Correct, which that
Okay.
started the trend of giving them actual numbers. And so in terms of like chronologically, this is the 5th film.
This is Luke, I Am Your Father, right?
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
Yeah.
It is. This is going to be it. This is the big moment. This is arguably, it's considered to be the best Star Wars film, and I
Right.
can agree with that to some point.
Right.
Like but we'll get into that. We got to save this for the pod for next time.
All right, I'm excited.
Me too. I'm just
This is
glad
one
that
of the
we're
more contemporary films that we've watched yet. Other than what? A Separation. This is the most recent film that we've had. Am I missing something here?
What do you
Oh,
mean?
no. Never mind. Because Fanny and Alexander, all of Bergman's films have been between this and
I think
now.
the newest film we've
Yeah.
had was A Separation.
Yeah. I was saying that this is one of the newer films that we've watched so far.
That's fair. I mean,
it's probably
after
about
watching a
halfway
movie
on the
from
list.
1931.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm excited to get into it. It's going to be so much fun. This movie is obviously a lot more easily accessible. It's all over Disney Plus. You can buy it if you want to, if you haven't already. But as always, it's always fun to talk movies with you, Parker. Where can people find you?
Yes, absolutely. You can find me on Parker_Paget on Letterboxd. I'm gonna put together here a list of my personal rankings so far of all the movies that we've watched of the top 100, just so I can kind of keep track where mine is in comparison to our average. I think that'll be a fun little side project. And yes, you can also find me at Batu Boy on Instagram. And
Sure.
I'm kidding, but go. I'll plug for you, Felix. Go check out Felix's Instagram and YouTube, Batu Boy. You've been doing that for a while now, so
And and I've been kind of falling off on it just because I've been diving deep into LetterBros because I've been having a lot of fun with this. It's been a nice little passion
it's been a
project,
blast.
but I mean,
You've been
obviously
killing
with
it.
hmm?
I said you've been killing it in post.
Oh, thanks. But obviously with this coming on, it's going to be a resurgence. There's going to be an awakening.
Mm-hmm.
But you can oh, I might strike back.
All right,
Anyway,
that's enough.
you can follow me. You can follow me on LetterBros at or at Letterboxd. But you can also follow LetterBros Pod on Instagram and YouTube for the video portion of this episode. But follow me on Letterboxd, ETZIO911. It's where you can find all of my reviews. I am finally going to be going to the movies tomorrow. I'm going to go watch Heretic and probably Wicked.
I might go see Heretic tonight.
Oh, do it, dude. And we might have to talk about it, but Honora has one showing and it's at 9 o'clock tomorrow, and I
Mm.
just can't do that. I'll fall asleep. But that's what I'll be doing. So look out for that. Again, rate us 5 stars and leave us reviews on the podcast version of this episode. Just let us know what we're doing wrong. Let us know what you likey about this podcast. And also follow Batu Boy, BATUUBOII. That's my Star Wars Instagram and YouTube. I have some things down the pipeline that I want to start kind of bringing back up. So be on the lookout for that. And it'll definitely be plugged a lot more for this episode. But until then, as always, thanks for listening to Letter Bros, and we will see you at the movies.